Nou, ons eerste groot lekker kuiergas van die dag is Monique Nel. En 1 Oktober was die internasionale bewusmakingsdag vir Gaucher-siekte. En Monique gesels bietjie met meer met ons vandag oor hierdie seldsame siekte. En ons vind ook uit wat dit is en ons gesels bietjie dalk oor ander seldsame siektes wat ook in Suid-Afrika voorkom. Goeiemôre Monique.
Goeiemôre bytspan, hoe gaan dit?
Baie lekker, dankie Monique. Ek weet ons moet eintlik maar in Engels praat, dis vir jou makliker om te verwys na die Engelse goed, maar ons sal hierna 'n bietjie Afrikaans ingooi. Vertel ons eers van seldsame siektes. Die hele konsep van seldsame siektes, is daar 'n groot impak daarvan in Suid-Afrika? Ek weet daar's 'n klop, die statistieke internasionaal is dit nogal groot, en is nie so seldsaam as wat mens mag dink nie, alhoewel almal individueel is. But locally, what does the stats look like?
Yeah, so I don't think we've got local data to show specifically exactly the right numbers because we don't have registries, so we are currently lacking that aspect. But when it comes to rare diseases, as you've mentioned, when you look at them individually, they might not be that rare. But when they're clustered together, we do see that it's quite common in our population. And we pick up these rare diseases quite often in our Black population. So a lot of opportunities for research and to find these patients.
Ons gesels met Monique Nel. Monique, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Sorry about that connection.
Wonderlik. It's out of all of our control. It is what it is. And we are still glad to have you with us. First, let's talk about the statistics internationally. Over 6,000 to 8,000 rare diseases affecting 350 million people internationally. The prevalence of Gaucher disorder, or I'm saying disorder now, I don't want to call it, can I call it a disease?
Yes, you may. You can call it a Gaucher's disease, 100%.
Tell us about Gaucher disease. What is it?
Okay, so Gaucher's disease is a metabolic disease. It falls under a class which is called a lysosomal storage disorder, which is a very, very long word. So normally I like to use analogies to describe how it actually works. So the first thing we need to know is what is a lysosome in the body. So basically the lysosome is an organelle within the cell, and it functions like a little waste bin, or it's like a little soldier of destruction. So it takes care of that unwanted materials that is in the cell and makes sure it metabolizes it in the cell. So the lysosome will take up these substrates, and then there's hundreds of different enzymes. So enzymes are little proteins in the lysosome that is responsible for a chemical reaction of a specific substrate. So when there's a lack of this specific enzyme, then there's a progressive accumulation of unwanted substrates in the cell. And then we will see a buildup of that substrate in the cell. So for Gaucher's disease specifically, it's one enzyme that is deficient. It's called, very long word, alpha-beta glucosidase enzyme. And because of this enzyme that is deficient, there's a buildup of a lipid, so a substrate. And then you will see that these cells quickly become engorged, so they grow and they become very, very big. And this will lead to the clinical features of Gaucher disease that we see in our patients.
Wow. Monique, I want to know, so you mentioned a whole lot of things, but what causes Gaucher's disease? Is it genetic? Is it something I eat? Is it something I can do about it? What is the root cause of it?
Yes, thank you for the question. Yes, it is genetic. It is passed on from generation to generation. So Gaucher's disease specifically is called an autosomal recessive disease. So meaning that both of your parents would need to be a carrier of a mutant gene to be able to pass it on to the child. So it's when both mom and dad are carriers of the gene, so they won't normally present with symptoms. So being unaware of this genetic mutation and then pass it on to the child. So with every married couple where there is presence of this mutation gene, there's a 25% chance of passing it on to their offspring.
Wow. You mentioned, parents might not show symptoms, but if you are diagnosed with Gaucher's disease, or before you're even diagnosed, what are some of the symptoms you have to look out for?
So when we talk about signs and symptoms, I think the most important thing with Gaucher's disease specifically is that these symptoms are so highly variable. They can present in so many ways, in so many different ways, and they might also respond differently to therapy. Just for an example, if you have family members or siblings within the same family, they can completely present differently. Whereas one might have the blood disorders versus the other one might having more of the visceral, so the organ involvement. So when we look at the signs and symptoms, we normally try to focus on the peds and then focus separately on the adults because the presentation might be slightly different. We first focus on the children because they are normally, when they present early, are the more severe type of the disease. When the patients that present later on in life are the less severe type of Gaucher's disease. So back to your question, how will they present? The most common ones is normally to look out for the enlarged spleens or enlarged livers. And this is normally with either the blood-related aspects, anemia. So anemia is your low red blood counts. So the patient will come in, say, I'm very fatigued, I'm tired, I can't go to work, or maybe thrombocytopenia. So those are your low platelet counts. So these are the children that you'll find easy bruising or bleeding tendencies in these patients. In the kids, a very key feature that we normally tell the doctors to look out for is growth retardation. So not making that growth chart milestones when they go to the clinic for their routine follow-ups. But very present in Gaucher's disease is bone manifestations. Although in the pediatric population, we won't find that very soon in the disease because they won't complain of it, but it is progressing insidiously, very slowly, where the bone manifestations in the adult are quite severe and easily picked up.
Monique, just quickly, if someone is thinking of maybe testing themselves for Gaucher disease, we have 30 seconds left, where can that be done?
Yes, great. So testing, there's 3 ways of testing. So you can do it at any routine lab, Ampaths or your Lancets. The doctor would have to request for a DBS card. So that is a dried blood spot test that needs to be done. And you need specifically to request for Gaucher's disease. And then that sample will be sent for enzymatic analysis. And subsequently, it will be sent for genetics.
Thank you very much, Monique. Ek wens ons het nog so 5 minute gehad want ek het nog baie vrae oor hierdie ding. Ons sal weer moet gesels.
Ek het nog so baie om te vertel.
Ons sal maar later weer vir jou 'n lykie gee en dan eendag weer verder gesels oor Gaucher. Baie dankie Monique Nel van Sanofi dat jy saam met ons gekuier het.